This is going to be a bit long. So I had a best friend in high school named Lena. We were friends for about a year and a half, and we would spend almost every weekend at her house, listening to music, watching scary movies, and gossiping. She was just a little bit crazy, the type of girl to beat up her boyfriend's exes unprovoked. She actually did that once. And catfish people. I say we were best friends, but actually it was more like I looked up to her, and she liked that she could boss me around and hang out with me whenever she pleased. She was extremely manipulative and two-faced. She had a hobby of being nice to girls at school and then going on their social media and making fun of everything they posted. She would befriend people just to get information from them. When we were friends, Lena was dating this guy named Nolan. They dated for about a year and a half and had lots of troubles the last 6 months or so. He would go out drinking most weekends, and she would cry in the middle of the night and blow up his phone, yelling at him and making him feel guilty. She was borderline psychotic when it came to his exes or the girls he was friends with, and they just weren't really working out, but they stayed together anyway. At some point, Nolan got Lena pregnant, and one of Lena's other friends, whose name was Autumn, became pregnant at the same time from the guy I was in love with. Naturally, I wanted nothing to do with Autumn, but because they were pregnant together, Lena started hanging out with Autumn most weekends and neglected our friendship. After about a month, I became fed up with it and started ghosting her. At first, she tried to apologize, but I was not having it, since the other girl was dating the guy I had been in love with for 2 years, and I was jealous and childish. So eventually, Lena got ticked at me and stopped trying. A few months went by and Lena had the baby. Nolan and Lena stayed together to take care of their son, but their relationship was absolutely horrendous at that point. Lena cheated on him, and Nolan decided he wanted out of the relationship, but continued to see his son and buy things for him. However, Lena and Lena's mother made things very difficult for him by constantly changing the days he could see his son, and refusing to let him take his son anywhere besides Lena's house. Lena's mother would also throw out Christmas presents from Nolan, ignore his phone calls, and eventually told him he wasn't allowed at the house. Nolan begged for months to see his son, but it was clear Lena and her mother didn't want him in the picture. Nolan offered to pay child support, but they didn't want that either. They just wanted him gone, so he stopped trying. Apparently, even that wasn't what they wanted. Lena took to social media to talk about how Nolan was a deadbeat. She told everyone she knew that being a single mother was really hard, and the baby daddy refused to take care of his kid. A year after they broke up, I met Nolan in person. We had been talking online for a couple months about Lena. We had shared stories about her crazy meltdowns and her manipulative tendencies, and we talked about the time he came to her house while I was there and attempted to scare her by jumping out when she went out the front door, but instead accidentally jumped out at me. He thought it was the funniest thing ever that my face stayed stone cold and I just said, "Sup." We had a similar sense of humor, and at the time, I had no one. I had just come out of one of the worst depressive episodes of my life. It had lasted for a good year, and I had dropped out of school, been doing drugs, isolating myself for weeks at a time, and considering suicide. He was the one to help bring me back from the brink. He was kind, and he was my support system. We were just friends at first. When Lena caught wind of our friendship, she reached out to me. At this point, we hadn't been friends for a year and a half. We caught up and talked about what had been happening in our lives. She asked what was going on with Nolan, and I told her we were just friends. Everything seemed fine. That's when her erratic behavior started. She would randomly block me on social media and then unblock me a month or two later. Sometimes we would talk like, "How are you? Everything good?" And then the next day I'm blocked. At one point, I asked one of her friends to get her to tell me why she was doing it because I was confused. So she unblocked me and told me she was salty about the situation with Nolan and the fact that I was friendly with him. I asked her why she kept making up with me and then suddenly getting ticked again and cutting me off. I told her I was tired of thinking things were good, only for her to turn around and pretend like we had never said anything to each other. That's when she said she could block me again or keep me unblocked. Whatever I wanted was fine, but she felt I had done her wrong by abandoning her during her pregnancy and befriending her ex-boyfriend. So then I tried to explain to her why Nolan was my friend. I tried to tell her that Nolan was all I had in the darkest time of my life. I tried to tell her why her neglecting me for Autumn hurt my feelings, but she wasn't having it. I understand where she was coming from, I really do, and I acknowledge the fact that I acted childishly and in a cruel way. But I had tried making up with her multiple times. I tried really hard, and she couldn't even stick with whether she could forgive me or not. so I told her to just block me again and be done with it. She told me she wouldn't block me again, and then she gave me her blessing with Nolan. She said she was fine if we wanted to date, and she said she hoped I had a good life, and I said the same to her, and I really meant it. We had a bad end, but I was glad we could at least wish each other well. It was a few months after I last spoke to her that Nolan and I started dating. I had waited so long because I was worried about Lena, even though we weren't friends anymore. But she had given me her blessing, and she was dating someone new, so I went with it. It was around this time that I received a friend request from a girl on Facebook named Casey. Casey said she lived in a big city in my state, and since we had mutual friends and I had once gone to school in that city, I assumed we had gone to school together and I just didn't remember her. She seemed like a real person. She claimed to work at Hooters, had made posts about how her work days went, had several pictures of the same girl, and had made frequent posts about her ex-boyfriend. I accepted the friend request, and she messaged me, telling me how pretty she thought I was. I thanked her and told her to message me anytime she wanted to chat. For the next few months, I was clueless. I went about my regular life, posting about the things me and Nolan did, getting my GED, hanging out with friends, visiting my mother, etc. Occasionally, I would see strange posts on my timeline from Casey, but didn't think much about it because I had over 1,000 friends on Facebook and I rarely saw them. They were mostly posts about how much she hated her baby daddy and how her line of work sucked. But there were two posts in particular that caught my eye. One was a post that seemed to be referencing something I had posted the day before, and the other was of her saying, "We all know a dirty hoe named blank," with my first name in that blank. So I went to her profile, and then clicked through months and months of posts. Some were about her line of work, everything else was related to me and Nolan. Everything. There were posts of her complaining about her deadbeat baby daddy buying things for everyone but his kid, posts about how sad she felt about the breakup, posts about how she missed me and thought of me as a sister, which is absolute nonsense and I'll explain why later, posts about how I stole her boyfriend, also nonsense, and a myriad of posts talking smack about me. She made fun of my hobbies, had directly referenced some of my posts, talked about how much she hated me, said that I was a dirty hoe, and in her later posts even went so far as to put my initials or my full first name in the post. She even had people in the comments egging her on and talking smack too, even though no one knew who she was talking about. But I did. She mentioned things only the two of us knew. She referenced our past experiences. It was undoubtedly Lena. I messaged Casey and told her I knew it was Lena. She played dumb and told me the initials were of another girl she knew. When I looked up the name she gave me, not a single person on Facebook had that name. When I told her that, she brushed over it and tried to get me to talk about Lena. So I played along and talked hardcore about Lena. I lied about a lot of things in an attempt to get her to out herself, but in the end, all she did was send a screenshot of our conversation to Lena's account in an attempt to make it look like Casey was real and was trying to help Lena out by showing what kind of a person I was. Casey then immediately deleted her account. She didn't block me, she deleted it. I had a friend and my dad check, and neither of them could find Casey's profile. So then another month went by, and I found out that she had reactivated the account, but because I can't block a deleted account, she was in my friends list again, and had access to my profile for who knows how many days. So I blocked her. She then sent me friend and follow requests on 3 other websites under the name Casey, which I also blocked. It was around that time that me and Nolan began to get a lot of friend requests from obviously fake accounts. We would report them and block them, and try to pretend she wasn't going insane. One of these fake accounts was extremely obvious, because it had poked both me and Nolan on the same day, at the same time. She was taunting us, I guess. I blocked that account too. Please be aware that at this time, Lena had married her boyfriend. She was doing this while married to someone else. A year later, I thought it had stopped, and one day, I went to the Casey account on my friend's Facebook because I wanted to see if she was still posting about me. When I scrolled down, I realized I had missed a post last time. This post was Lena mocking the fact that my mother, yes, my birth mother, called her frequently to talk smack about me and give her information about me and Nolan. Turns out, my mother and Lena went to the same college, and my mother thought what better way to make friends than by helping someone stalk my daughter. She would ask me about mine and Nolan's relationship often. She talked smack about Lena and would act like the perfect mother to my face. She didn't raise me, so I didn't trust her 100%. For that reason, I never gave her my phone number, address, or any other information I felt was private. When my dog went missing, she tried to convince me to post my address on Facebook. She kept saying how important it was that people knew exactly where he went missing from. What nonsense. Thank God I didn't, because I might have woken up to Lena punching my head in, or worse. For a while there, I was legitimately paranoid. Every time I went to the store or went outside, I was watching my surroundings closely. Because if Lena was willing to beat the hell out of a girl Nolan had dated for 3 weeks, unprovoked, what would she do to me if she saw me in public? Would she kill me? I had never met someone so obsessive. Let me just say, Lena was a horrible friend. She was manipulative, bossy, judgmental, rude, erratic, narcissistic, and two-faced. When I felt my first heartbreak, she spent all night talking smack about the guy, saying I deserved better. Eventually, I talked smack with her to make myself feel better. And what does she do? She messages him on Facebook and tells him everything I said about him. She guilt-tripped me about having other friends. She convinced me to abandon one of my friends just because she didn't approve of her. She would ignore me when there were other people around. If I complained about anyone, she would go tell that person what I said, even if she had something worse to say about them. She would go through people's Facebooks and laugh at them and talk about how dorky they were, and not in a nice way. In a, this person is scum for being a bit dorky kind of way. She would make me feel ridiculous for liking the things I did, and I never felt like I could be myself around her. It amazes me how many people Lena has manipulated. Even her poor husband probably doesn't know she was a stalker. So yeah, there you have it. Lena cyberstalked me for 2 years, and if I had given my mother my address, it might have become actual stalking. She hasn't been trying to stalk me for a while now. I cut my mother off and deleted all but 40 people off my Facebook and made all my social media accounts private to keep this from happening again. I'm hoping I won't ever hear from Lena again. The last obvious sign I've gotten of her still trying to stalk me is a fake account that sent me a friend request about 3 months ago. An account that was a few months old, had the same last name as my friend, who told me he didn't know her, and only liked 2 Facebook pages, one of which was a grocery store page, and the other was my page. My obscure Facebook page. My page that has spaces in between the letters and Japanese letters in the name. My page that you have to either know the exact name of or have a link to find. My page that I had already had to ban Lena and Casey from because both accounts also liked it. Sometimes I wonder if Lena is even trying to be secretive or if she's just stupid. At least her attempts are few and far between now, so I don't consider her to be stalking me anymore. Anyways, sorry for such a long story. I was young when all this stuff happened, and I made some really dumb choices, so go easy on me, please. I know I'm not 100% faultless in this, and yes, me and Nolan are still together, and we'll be celebrating our 4-year anniversary in a couple months.
I'm going to put this in for context that will be useful later down the road. On March 10th, my very good friend committed suicide. I was on site with the officers and a few close friends who showed up that day as well. It was really rough for me and many others, and still affects me to this day. So back at the end of October, beginning of November, I dated this girl named Tina. This girl was really something. She was your basic white girl, loud, unfunny, and always on TikTok trying to do those dances. Our first date rolled around and we went to her high school's football game, and she wouldn't try to meet up with me at the concession stand because she was genuinely intimidated by me for whatever reason. Then all of a sudden, she basically wanted to be by me for the rest of the football game. She was extremely erratic in her behavior that day, and that should have been the first red flag for me. Later that night, I was texting her, and she pressured me into telling her about what happened to my friend and what it made me feel like. Normally, I'm a pretty open guy, but I just met this girl and didn't know what to think about her. But I gave in and told her. Later that night, she started talking about how no one would miss her if she was gone. I didn't know how to react as my anxiety kicked in. I kept trying to tell her that people needed her, and soon, I told her I loved her as a panic response as things ramped up in her behavior. This was the first red flag I noticed, but in reality, I wish it was the second, and I wish I'd stopped talking to her after that football game. But now, I was believing that this girl was suicidal. I played up an act of liking her for a few more weeks. My high school's homecoming was coming up and I asked her to the dance. However, all plans almost ended right there when she ran from home in the middle of the night and had her friend text me about how she was going to kill herself. Stuff got real for me then. I was so angry as I yelled at her over the phone asking her to tell me where she was. I told her that I was going to call the cops, but she insisted that I didn't. I was going about 60 on every single road. She kept telling me that the cliffside she had been sitting on would be great for jumping off. My rage and fear stirred up so hot that I started crying and screaming. I went numb. I found her due to the fact that she was describing a woman who she thought was going to kidnap her or some other lie. In reality, it was just a woman trying to get an owl out of the way of their car. I had tears in my eyes and rage in my blood as I begged the woman to help me find her. Soon I did as I saw her outline in the near tree line. I basically had to drag this 5'2" woman out of this ditch and put her in the back of my car. Then immediately, she switched from being sad to angry and was calling me insane and kicking the back of my seat like a child. Later that night, I was talking with my mom. I was telling her I wanted to break up with her, and I almost did, but I was completely terrified of the fact that if I did, she may end up hurting herself. She was in my head. I constantly worried about her, and on top of that, her friends came after me as well to stir more attention and drama, which they ate up like a pack of lions with a newly caught prey. Eventually, I did break up with her. I just had to find the right time and build up the courage to do it. I was happy for once, and she was not. I felt powerful and in control of my actions again. I even stood up for myself when she tried to pen me as an abuser, which was far from the case, and many people can confirm it. I told her how controlling she was and how crappy her two-faced friends were. I also told her how delusional her reality was, which went in tandem with a side conflict I was having with another friend named Griffin. It turned out she and Griffin had not only been manipulating me and my friend group, but were having an affair and were seeing each other while I and Tina were dating. So my friends decided to fully cut off these people, and Griffin was gone from our lives, but Tina was not. She continued to send her goons after us and harass us. I was the main target, but my friend Anna took a beating too due to the fact she was the only other girl in the friend group. I had enough and told the principal about each incident, in the hope she would be removed from the school. I told them I wanted her away from me and my friends, as the harassment became worse and worse. I went from just insults over Instagram DMs to filming our conversations and listening in on us and using it as blackmail. They even tried to tear apart a relationship I was in with this girl from my history class. Her name was Selena. They didn't do anything but tell them to stop and then told me to stop, which I have no idea why, as I wasn't doing anything in particular. I took that quote-unquote advice and stopped. When she would harass us, I would just block them out, or if they harassed us in person, we made them out to be fooled, and soon they realized they couldn't get to us anymore. But quarantine happened, and things became bad. Harassment picked up again, as they knew their school career wouldn't be put in line anymore, and I eventually got pictures of Tina and Griffin FaceTiming each other and flirting. However, things slowed down as the 1 year of our friend's passing came up, and I just hoped it would be the end of it, as maybe a time of sadness would make them realize something, but it sure as hell didn't. I got a text last night from an unknown number at about 1 a.m. telling me I was a disgusting person and looked gross. I kept asking who it was, although I knew deep down who it really was. They were insulting me and I insulted back, showing I wouldn't take their crap. I asked who it was again and they said, "Someone who hates you," and I kept going. I told them that I didn't even know them and they must be miserable to be texting someone they hate at 1 in the morning. They texted me saying, "I know who you are," and I asked, "Who am I then?" They said my name, spelled perfectly, which is a rare coincidence surprisingly. It's not even a hard name to spell or say. Then they went on to say things like, "Why did you hit me? You ruined my life." People thought my parents were abusing me, and then immediately switching to how they loved me and how they wanted me to be their wife, and how I was all of a sudden gay. None of this made sense, and I was genuinely afraid, as the erratic behavior was genuinely scary and concerning with some of the things they said earlier. Soon it turned for the worse. They were telling me they knew where I lived, and they were describing my house in perfect detail. I grabbed a baseball bat that I kept close to my bed and ran downstairs and looked out the windows. It was pitch black, and my fight or flight instincts kicked in. As I stared out the window trying to see any sort of shadow moving in the dark, my phone buzzed. They were in my backyard. I just texted calmly, but in reality I was in a panic, and I ran to the back windows. It was still pitch black, and our dim porch and backyard lights wouldn't help a thing. All I knew to do was to call the cops. 2 cars showed up at my house, and I and my parents stayed up a bit later until they left. I showed them the text, and they asked if there was anyone who would threaten me or anything. I just told them about my crazy ex. I got a text about how boring I was, and that they were blocking me not too later after that. Not sure if it was related to the cops showing up, making things lame for them because I started texting with no reactions whatsoever. Either way, things went too far. I will continue to update the story if things happen, and hopefully, the next time stuff goes down, it will be the end of this messy situation. Update. So last night, my friend Anna received a call from Tina. It was very interesting. She talked about how she likes her boyfriend and wants to make out with him. My friend's response was sarcastic and saying, "Thank you for telling me," as she knew this wasn't true. Later, she received a voicemail telling her to kill herself, and also called her fat. I and my other friend Mark received calls and texts as well. Nothing harmful, just harassment. But we reported every single thing to the heads of our high school. Like I said, the next time things go down should hopefully be the end of it. But as a suicide survivor and a school that dealt with 2 suicides last year, we know they won't deal with her crap and will make ends of this. Update. Things did happen. I received over 20 Instagram calls, over 10 phone calls, and 5 voicemails from my ex. It slowed down my phone, and I was unable to do anything but let it ring. I wanted to tear my head off. Tomorrow I'm getting the police involved again and pressing charges.
My father had been dating this girl for a while, and things were going great. She's met us a few times and got along great with my sister and I. Eventually, my father asked her to move in with us. She drove 7 hours to move in and brought her 2 cats. Things were great for the first 2 months, until she couldn't find a job. They had agreed that she was to apply for jobs and have one secured for an interview before she moved in. She moved in on July 2nd. She didn't have a job until late January. I, being fresh out of high school with no experience in a job setting, was able to get a job before her. This caused my father to have to cover her car payments and insurance. This set us back financially, but we were okay. Then October came, with the discovery of a full year's worth of text messages between her and a friend of hers named Jared, all taking place when my father and her were dating, and all while she was still living in her hometown. These text messages were laced with him coming over and giving her nighttime love-ins and inappropriate pictures. My father confronted her about it, and she denied it, saying we just didn't understand her friendships. My father lets it go, as they haven't messaged each other in weeks. Small arguments pop up, and she starts sneaking money out of my dad's wallet at night to go buy cigarettes. This may only sound like a small amount, but it was a nightly occurrence. This set us back financially as well. These arguments mainly consisted of her lying about something and not admitting it, or her doing something stupid and not apologizing. Things got worse as Christmas came. My father expressed that he didn't love her anymore. He didn't have any feelings towards her, and that she needed to work to fix the relationship if she wanted to continue. This meant really trying to get a job and not lying about stupid stuff. She agreed that she would. I advised him against giving her the option. I was tired of her nonsense and wanted her out. She started lying more and more and causing more problems. We believe she started taking some sort of drug, as she would come back from a drive all shaky and spazzing out, spouting nonsense. She came after me and a friend of mine during one of their arguments, to which my father responded, "Pack your stuff and get the hell out. How dare you go after my kids?" Telling her to get out and leave was a regular occurrence in their fights, but she never took the hint. She was abusive emotionally to everyone in the household, especially my father, reducing him to tears when he found out that she had been receiving $1,000 a month from her mother, which would have had us staying up to date on the rent payments. We have no idea what she did with the money. No matter the situation, she would try and twist it so that she would be the victim. Even calling my father asking second opinions on party of persecuting Martha. Nothing is ever her fault, and it's always a misunderstanding. Then, she started smoking in the garage. The door from the garage into the house is right across from my bedroom door, which is always open because our cats like sleeping on my bed with me. I have asthma. I woke up coughing and smelling cigarettes multiple times in one night because of her. She's driven recklessly with my little sister and I in the car before, and I told my father what happened. When my father confronted her on it, she said I was over-exaggerating, that driving in the dark freaks her out, that my little sister and I, in our "it's too early for this, I'm gonna sleep and listen to my earbuds" state, were stressing her out. A minor thing, but she endangered my sisters and my own cats. We have 2 strictly indoor cats, and her 2 were outdoor cats until they moved here. Her cats have taught mine how to sneak out of the house when the front door isn't latched. She leaves the front door open constantly when she comes back in from smoking and lets my cats get out. We live right across the street from a huge lot of desert, and we hear the coyotes every night. She's let them get out at night before. After she finally got a job, she didn't want to contribute her fair share of the bills. My father asked her for half of her paychecks every 2 weeks. She claimed that it should be only 25% because there are 4 people in the house. My sister and I are only there on weekends as we go to school outside of town, about an hour away, and stay with other family during that time. She also apparently wasn't paying her car payments after she got her job, as she got a repossession notice, which she hid from my father. Finally, after financially wrecking us, abusing my father emotionally and financially, endangering myself and my sister, doing drugs, taking money, stealing things from my room, endangering my cats, and many other things, my father gave her 2 weeks to move out. She moved out a couple of days ago. She originally left her cats, but failed to pay my father the $350 she owed him. So he said that we would be taking care of her cats until he got the money. She flipped and bursted into the house when I was there alone, saying horrible things about my father and that her babies weren't safe here. When I called her out for not paying the money and everything mentioned above, she told me that I was sipping the freaking Kool-Aid. I wish I was joking about this. I finally shut the door to my bedroom and started sobbing because I couldn't handle this. She came after me by banging on my bedroom door and saying how horrible I was, and saying I just slammed the door in her face. I called my father on my phone on FaceTime and opened up my bedroom door, and she bolted into the garage. I followed her while my father screamed at her to give me her key to the house. She ran past me screaming nonsense and went back into the living room. I finally had enough, and with my dad on the phone, I let her have it. I was yelling and screaming and cursing. I was mad, and there was just nothing for me to lose at this point. Finally, I told her to get the hell out of my house. She grabbed her cats by the scruff and ran out of the house. I worry for those cats every day. I loved them dearly, and they became such huge parts of our family. I hope nothing but the best comfy loving lives for them, and the most painful existence for her. What's up, everybody? This is the Lone Wolf here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. I want to give a big thank you to all the Redditors who allowed me to read their stories in this video. There will be links to each individual Reddit post in the description below for anyone who wants to read them. I also want to give a massive thank you to Dr. Midnight for teaming up with me in this video. He is another one of the newer members to the horror narrator community, and I'm very happy that we could work together in this video. If you enjoyed his narration and want to check out more of his work, there will be a link to his channel in the description below, as well as an icon that will appear at the end of the video. Anyways, if you're new to my channel, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing if you enjoyed my narrations. Hit that bell for notifications and join the Lone Wolf Pack. If any of you guys want to send me a message or maybe a personal scary story that you would like me to read, there will be a link to my email account and my Twitter account in the description below. There will also be links in the description for the music artists that I used in this video, as well as the individual tracks that I used in case you're interested in the music. And last but not least, if any of you guys have any ideas or tips for me to make my channel better, please leave me a comment or send me a personal message. Until next time, stay spooky. And remember, the hunt begins when the moon is full. See you soon.